That's what you do. You buy these planes that cost me and make a difference in it. But we never do that.
Never complains, gets up, gets on, with a smile on his face.
You just want you to sit in your chair and go, hip hip hooray, for the Western press and the Western narrative, regurgitating the same old, every single day, without the truth. If you haven't seen it before, please watch the first two episodes, the second series.
We are on the site of the castle,
and it was the first time the Beatles had really stopped being semi-professional almost.
Look at that.
Absolutely fascinating.
Does it all the time to me. Little picture. Like they call it. Anyway, good evening everyone. It's good to have you all here. And we're talking about the Irish. Yes, we're talking about the Irish. And we're talking about my lot, the Italians. And how did Liverpool greet them? Hey, how did they greet them? How did they greet the Irish? How did they greet the Italians? That'll all be discussed. Excuse me. Been out with my bloody daughter all day. Not all day, but this morning, it's terrible. I do some business, for there, and really, grinding things. I was absolutely knackered. Knackered I was. Very tired. Very tired. Yeah, so the Irish will be talking about. I've got my great friends with me tonight. He's got Irish blood. I think I'm going back to the 80s. And back in the 80s, there was 85, no. Yeah, going back to the 80s, it was 80% Irish blood. 10% was Italian blood. The other 10% was a mixture of everything. The Chinese, for example. And don't forget that the likes of the Chinese, they were the first lot to set up a community here. It's incredible who set up communities in Liverpool. Even the Japanese. I'll tell you for why later. Well, I'll tell you now. The Japanese set up a community because he wanted to know how Liverpool became involved with whaling in the North Atlantic. And they said, what's going on up there? Whaling. So they wanted to see how whaling was done in the North Atlantic and what kind of whales they were. Any different from the Southern Hemisphere. When they went whaling And what it was the Norwegians. Because a fella by the name of Daniel Brocklebank, he came over in 1774. That was the sign, from America that is, that was the signing of the independence, the American independence. 2 years later, they had a war, didn't they? The American War of Independence. But he came over, but he went to Canada first, and he said, I want to set up a whaling station. They told him to piss off. He said, no, you don't have money. We've got loads of whalers here, mate. So he came to Liverpool, and he set up a whaling line. And we've still got the Brocklebank dock, believe it or not, today. So Daniel Brocklebank came over, set up a whaling station, whaling dock. And that's how the Japanese came over. The Scousers couldn't do it because, what are they? What are big whales? Big fish. I'm not going after them. It's a big them. I've got a hoop big enough. So anyway, they sent for the Norwegians. They were the experts. Allora Italia, buonasera Franco, e Anthony, a tutti. Non vedo l'ora di discutere stasera. L'ho aspettato tutti il giorno. And buonasera to you as well, Bella Italia. Really? Because you're saying hello and everyone, you know, Sir Anthony, this wonderful man of mine. That doesn't sound right. He's a wonderful friend of mine, not man. I get funny ideas. And she's looking forward to the discussion, obviously, about the Italians. About the Italians is lovely, Bella Italia. And a friend, Simon. Hi, Franco, Anthony, and I came across this quote earlier, fitting of the group in chat and our discussion tonight about Little Italy. Un vero amico è quello che entra quando il resto del mondo esce. The world is with us. For all of that. Do you know what? I'd love to discuss, you know, how the Americans treated the Italians. The Americans. Well, the Americans treated any group of people going in. They looked at them, you know. We'll discuss that one day. I'll discuss it. Johan. This is our brother. Good evening, Frank. I saw that Steph and Jimmy responded to you last night on Jimmy. Did you? Right before the New York Bear segment. Happy Thursday, legends. Yeah, they responded, didn't they? And Steph. Frank. No, we'll be over. Listen. If you ever come here, Johan, to my home one day, I'll bring you down. I'll say, yeah, from here, this is where Jimmy appeared, just along the road. Just along the road. And I missed him. I thought he'd be coming in September or something. And he'd been. Yeah, he did respond, didn't he, when I put up a comment. Does that mean that, Johan, that me and Jimmy are like that and Steph? I was wondering if Steph must have been with him because she was saying, wasn't she, about coming over to Europe? So she must have been. I forgot to ask Stephen Mulholland, actually. George said, good evening, Frank and Anthony. As the token Irishman here, I am delighted on the top. That's nice, though. That's nice, George. Don't fall out with me, you know. I'm going to read. The Scottish Bear. Good evening, Frank. Hope you're well tonight. Are you Scottish? And I hope you too. I hope you too, Scottish. I'll just say this one thing to the Scottish cakers. Officially, cakers. Good evening, Johan, says Bella Natalia. Isn't that lovely? The bear. Smash them lights on the way in for Frank. Thank you. I really appreciate it. You know. That's lovely. I like when you say hello to each other. I really do. And Gary, I haven't seen you for a while, Gary. Even if Frank, very low sound tonight. Might be my phone. Hope you can hear me okay. Gianfranco, buonasera to you all, says Tosca. Buonasera a tutti. The vlogs. Hi, vlogs. Hello, Frank. Me and Skylar are watching you now. She likes history, doing it go away. NDD8 stuff in school. Yet she thought he was still alive. Little Skylar. It's the way it is, you know. It really is the way it is. I was like, no, he was hundreds of years ago. That's great. Then. What, little Skylar? Are you Skylar? And it was your birthday the other week, wasn't it? And I wished you a happy birthday, you know. I commented on your dad's post. I said, happy birthday, Skylar. Hope your dad buys you loads and loads of things. If I've got something on Henry VIII, I'll give it to your dad to give to you as a present from me. Should have a book on him. Gary says, Liverpool had Chinese, Italian, Irish, Manx and black communities. Yeah, they did. We had Armenian community as well. Armenian. Barry. Good evening, Frank and chat. Hope you're all well. Say Barry. Hi, Frank from Huyton, says Polo. I can tell you the thing about Huyton and me when I was younger. I must start when I was younger. Evening, Frank and Anthony. Hope you're both well, says lovely Lynn Ellis. Hiya, Lynn. Jed Sheridan. Hi, Frank. Looking forward to the chat. Brilliant. I was talking to his mother last night. Jed's mother. I was talking to her. And she's 90 odd years of age. Made up of us. Lovely, lovely little chat, me and Jed's mother. Gary, even in Polo Mint from Wakefield. See, Gary lives in the posh part of Liverpool. But if all us moved up there, it wouldn't be posh anymore. And Johan says, Steph and Jimmy, go away. I didn't know they were married. Go away. I didn't know that. Thanks for letting me know, Johan. Thank you. I'll have to go through these. Evening chat gang, says lovely Lynn. The vlogs. Skylar says, thank you. Ah, oh, lovely. I'll look that up, vlogs. I'm sure I've got one on NVDA. And she'd like it, actually. Thing is, it won't be propaganda. The way you get propaganda. But this tells you what it was really like. Don't let it ease it. So you might say, where are you getting that stuff from, Skylar? Polo Mint. Do you have a brother called Dickie? Dickie Mint. And Polo says, Frank, the painting behind you is very interesting. See, when I painted this, it's on the wall. When I painted it, I said to Anthony, I've painted the castle, our Liverpool castle that was built in 1234 approximately. I said, I don't know what to put at the side of it all. So Anthony came along and he painted this little ship here, that one and that one. I said, I believe it. He said, no, you carry on with the rest of it. So this is a river. That's the River Mersey. Then it went along, and where this is, terrible, is there's Whitechapel. Whitechapel. Where the Yancey Church is here, that one there. That's what you call the today Sebastopol. It's terrible, the coordination, you get here and you're trying to say, oh, no, I didn't paint it. But it's the Liverpool castle. I can't paint anything, I can't draw anything. Francine said to me, she's a little girl, you paint me a monkey? I went, okay. Not paint me, draw me a monkey. So I drew this monkey. Turns out a lion. I said, lions are better. She said, no, I want a monkey. That was my passing. Look, I've got to bring in my great friend here. I really am sleepy. I know Polo's brother, Pepper. I wonder who ruler of that castle was in 1235. The ruler was William de Ferrers, the sheriff of Lancaster. That became the whole. I'll do the origins one day of Liverpool, and I'm going to bring in my wonderful oppo here, and it's none other than Anthony. He's got Irish blood, like the rest. I don't know what it is today. I'm being honest. The It's not 80% now. It's not. Nowhere near. For reasons.
75.
75%.
I think so.
Yeah, well, there you go. So it's dropped down a bit. But nevertheless, the Irish.
Still here. Still here.
Oh, brilliant.
He's-
Little Skylar's messaged us. She said, "It's me, Skylar." And she
Oh,
says, "I love your videos. It's me, Skylar."
oh, fantastic.
Isn't that lovely?
Oh,
That's a little child.
yeah.
That's a little child. You know, a little schoolgirl who's doing history and she likes it. Just like Sophia, my own granddaughter, you know.
Yeah.
But she's doing something on, what's she doing? Oh, Cromwell. Cromwell. I said, "Do you want any help?" Mr. Cromwell. Did you know Cromwell wanted to commit genocide of all the Irish?
Yes.
Of all the Irish.
This is the fake Cromwell a few centuries after Henry.
Yeah.
Who had
Thomas. Thomas was executed by Henry VIII.
yeah.
He was executed, and then Oliver, bam,
casual connection to the name, didn't he?
Oh yeah.
And he thought, I love that. Makes me sound well hard.
It was horrible, you know. You know when you look. I'll just go off with this. The likes of in 1566, for example, you had the Spanish who got over to America. Right, they got over to America. They got to South America, Brazil. No, they didn't. The Caribbean and Florida. You know, and they moved up, didn't they, towards the north. But that's where they stayed.
Yeah.
And then they moved over to California. So this is what you've got. You're also at the French. They were going over. So the English, they said, listen, you know, they said we've got to go over there because, as you know, during the Reformation, England broke away from the Church of Rome.
Yeah.
And it was protesters, what you call protesters, reformers. So they broke away, this country. And there was terrible hardships if you were a Roman Catholic in this country after the Reformation. Terrible hardship. So Sir Humphrey Gilbert, he wanted to go over to America because and the excuse was, you know, you have to have an excuse. You've got to have a motive to go and to a foreign country. And that they said, he said, the only thing, he said, is that the Spanish are giving out the false religion, the devil's religion, the Spanish way, you know, to the Native American. Now, they didn't know what the Native American was like. So they said, okay, yeah, well, you go over if you want. So what Humphrey Gilbert did, he said, okay. So in 1566, he decided to look at countries that he could go to and test the ground before he got to America. So he was using You know, what he wanted to do, he wanted to use a country, a foreign country, a foreign sovereign state as a stepping stone, as an experiment to see how the natives of it. So he looked around, he looked at Holland and he went, can't go there. Couldn't go to France. Couldn't try his little, put his little toe in the water there. Certainly couldn't go to Portugal or Spain, especially Spain. Couldn't test the water there with his big toe. So what he did, he looked over towards Ireland. Now, Ireland was an independent country, spoke its own language, has its own culture, has its own religion. So he goes over in 1566. And he was there for 3 years. Have I got it? Oh, please. There was a fellow by the name of Thomas Churchyard. Yeah, I've got to do. I've got to read this. I might read it after breakdown. I don't know where I am. I'm definitely. Hang on. Let me put my glasses on. And he brought over a scribe by the name of Thomas Churchyard. Now, scribes always went with if they were going anywhere, like a battle. Even, as you know, they brought artists over. That's why you've got loads of paintings of battles in the past. Because there was artists there. They would draw them and paint them and afterwards. Oh, Thomas Churchill writes on it, look. And I'm going to read it out what he says. I don't want to paraphrase, he said. I'm sorry about the itching, I've got this bloody itch. It's terrible. It's terrible. Right. Thomas Churchill wrote this about Sir Humphrey Gilbert. And his quote, what Humphrey Gilbert wrote, is there. Quote, I slew all those from time to time that did belong to, feed, accompany, or maintain any outlaws or traitors, and after my first summoning of any castle or fort, if they would not presently yield it, I would not afterwards take it of their gift, but won it perforce, how many lives soever it cost, putting man, woman, and child of them to the sword, unquote. You see how brutal he was?
Yeah. Yeah.
And as now that was his quote. That was Gilbert's quote. Now here's what Churchill said himself, the scribe. He said about Gilbert, he deliberately killed women and children. Have you noticed it's not men there, right? He deliberately killed women and children with their men and laid waste the land in order to cause famine. He cut the heads of his dead enemies and formed a lane of heads to the door of his tent, so that all his prisoners should pass through that lane. He brought great terror to the people when he saw he brought great terror to the people when they saw the heads of their dead fathers, brothers, children, kinsfolk, and friends lie on the ground before their faces.
Horrific. Horrible.
It was because back in the day, warfare then was horrendous. One of the Monty Python's sketches where you see a knight and he's standing there
Yeah.
and he's saying, "You're not passing here," and the next, and he ends up with no arms and no legs. That's what it was like.
Yeah.
That's what it was like because they made sure you were dead.
Yeah.
It was shocking, the warfare at the time. Very brutal. Very, very brutal. And they made sure that you were dead.
Was it this particular odious, horrible, evil piece of shit that first started to deport Irish people to America as slaves?
Brilliant. See, look. There was slavery going on. And they wanted to get rid of the slaves. I mean, the Irish, one way or the other. And what was their aim? Their aim was to take all the land because they had fisheries were fantastic. The wood, don't forget, wood was one of the most important commodities of the time. Still is today.
Yeah.
Wood. Everything was built from wood. So they wanted the wood. Beautiful arable farmland.
Yeah.
You could even burn earth. You could burn it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Peat. So everything was there for them. Get rid of the Irish. The Irish went through some terrible times. You just heard Thomas Churchyard there saying, the scribe, Liverpool scribe, by the way, when he sailed from here over to Ireland. So you've got 1566, scorched earth famine. Was the first famine. The second famine, 1727. Third famine, 1729. Fourth famine, 1740. Fifth famine, 1800. Sixth famine, 1745. See, people only talk about the 1845 famine. There's 5 others, where hundreds of thousands of Irish perished in each famine. So you have these Irish, they had rebellions all the time. Oppression, you see. It was oppression. No matter if you go into a country, you're oppressed. It wasn't. Let's take India for example. Belonged to the empire. I hate saying empire, but it did anyway. Do you think that they went into India and went, all right, lads, what we're going to do here, we're going to build you nice houses, we're going to build a big school over there, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, you'll be okay. He went in and slaughtered them.
Yeah.
Made the mark, just like they did in Ireland.
Genocide.
Sorry, go ahead, Anthony.
Genocide, Frank. Genocide, and then plant a flag.
That was it. And even Cromwell, he sent over all of that. Yeah, get over there. Get them Irish. So we sent them over. when he became Lord Protector. So they were all over there. And he said, oh, what's got? There's too many Irish. You can't kill them all. And they fight back. They fight back. It's a joke.
Because
You might think I'm just, So anyway, what they did, what Cromwell did, there was a fella by the name of Major John Rossman. Major General, Rossman. And because he killed more Irish, he presented land. He said, this is your land. Honest, this is yours. Killing more Irish than anybody else. And there was a place called Strokestown. And he gave them the land, 9,000 acres of land. So they're the rewards. They were the rewards. That's what Cromwell. So if we leap, the people who own the land, say like I own lands over there, and as a farmer and people working, and you own land and people were working on the land, they just confiscated it off you. So you and I would be with the people tilling the land and growing things. The only thing that you and I were given was a little plot of land for sustainability to keep us alive so we could grow our food. Did you know that you couldn't buy meat? You weren't allowed to eat meat. The Irish.
no.
Do you know why? It sounds mad. Because it'll give them strength. That's what the English say. It'll give them strength. We can't afford to give them strength. So they just gave it, you can eat the potatoes. But little did they know that the potatoes was more nourishment for them.
Yeah, give you more
Like
strength.
that.
Yeah.
Big muscly fellas.
The spirits.
Yeah.
You can get rid of all things. You can't get rid of the spirits.
No.
And if you're in the right and someone's threatening you and yours, grossly in the wrong, then yeah.
Absolutely. So what has happened in 1843, now America always shipped potatoes, so did the Irish. The Irish, one of their main industries was potatoes, exporting over to England.
Yeah.
But it was the English exporting to the English. So anyway, 1843, this massive shipment came over from America. And it went to the home counties here and also Northern Europe, the likes of Normandy, Holland, Belgium.
Yeah.
These potatoes. So they were planted for 1844, but they were bad. It was a blight. All the potatoes that came over in 1843 from America were blighted. All the Northern Europe in the 1844, they were useless. They couldn't cultivate them. They were bad. Same as here in the home counties, they were all bad. Now, Major John Rossman, now General mom's ancestor, descendant, who owned Strokestown. Now, the descendant from the fella who was awarded it by Cromwell, he always wanted to get rid of his tenants. Now, his tenants were Catholic, and he wanted to get rid of them, and he couldn't get rid of them. So I guess what he did. Now, this disease, blight, it wasn't airborne. It had to be planted. So what he did, he planted all these bad crops of potatoes. He planted them all. Went to England, got them up, planted them in Strokestown. So in 1845, there was the famine. And it was shock. This is how to get rid of the Irish. This is how to get rid of them.
Yeah.
They were starving. Do you know that groups of them had to wheat, grass, flowers, groups of Irish, and they were all on the move. I wish I would have had it. I haven't got it. I must have lost it, or gave it. I used to have a map of Ireland.
Yeah.
Before 1846, and then I'd show you a map of 1846. Now, they had to do something to stop the tide of the Irish on the move, and I'm talking all Ireland. For example, here in this wonderful city of ours, the very first workhouse to be built was in 1732. Excuse me. And the very first workhouse, believe it or not, do you know where the Radio Merseyside is?
Yeah.
That's the site of it, Hanover Street.
Wow.
That was the site. Right smack bang, the workhouse was.
Wow.
And they got the labour. Now, we love the Blue Coat Chambers, don't we?
Yeah.
We love it.
Yeah.
The labour was from the workhouse next door to it. That's why you think about it. A workhouse right smack bang in the middle there.
Yeah.
I'll give you another prime site of a workhouse. And that was up Brownlow Hill. Right on the site of the Catholic Cathedral as it is today.
Yeah.
Now, Brownlow Hill, wow, it's incredible. At the area at the time, you had Rodney Street, Faulkner Square, Abercrombie Square.
Yeah.
And when you look at Rodney Street, fantastic. All around there. It's what you call today the Georgian Quarter. And what's the buildings like? The beautiful.
Yeah.
Stunning. Beautiful. The labour, where did it come from? It came from the workhouse.
The workhouse.
And who helped them at the time? With the French prisoners of war from the Napoleonic Wars. They built everything. They were the labourers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you know? I'm going to say two things here. Do you know the wall on the Dock Road, the French wall? They call it the French wall.
Yeah.
And these divvies wanted to knock it down. You know, when
Yeah.
they were building Everton's ground, not against Everton, please, not against Everton. But these divvies wanted to pull it down. You can't do that. It's Grade 1 listed. The Napoleon, the French prisoners from the Napoleonic Wars built that. Built it.
Yeah.
Now, if you go further along and past the Liver, you know, where the Albert Dock is.
Yeah.
Now, it's all French architecture. It's beautiful. The arch, the massive arch.
It is.
You could look through, you know, to see the Liver and whatever.
Yeah.
And also you see a turret. There's a turret there. It was the policeman's hut. And it was just built like a French turret. And it's still there to beauty. So the French, their architecture, you know, was there.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is the thing, in answer to people who say, what do immigrants do in a city? Well, between the Irish, the French, the Italians, every beautiful thing in the city of Liverpool was built, made, the docks were dug.
Bang on. Absolutely, 110% right. So the Irish, they said, yeah, we're not staying here anymore. We are not staying here anymore. So they wanted to get away from the English. They said, we don't want to stay here anymore.
Yeah.
So the influx started in 1847. Now then, two things. The Irish blight, right? And he calls it the potato famine. Remember what I said about meat and that?
Yeah.
So they couldn't, they had no money, they wasn't given anything. The Irish. You know, all the English landlords, even going back to 1800, William Pitt the Younger went, why are you starving these people? You've got to feed them. You've got to feed them. So he said, I've had enough of you lot. To the landlords, you know, the people, they were English.
Yeah.
Albeit they owned the land, they're always in fucking London. Sorry to swear.
Well, they stole the land.
Skyler, I never swore, honestly. I didn't swear, sweetheart.
Square pot.
That red beard to be amazing.
And that's whatever you want to call it. But
well, here's what happened. Here's what happened. As I said about the workout, they set up in 1846 massive workhouses all over Ireland. Workhouses. Like we had our first in 1732. It goes right up to 1846 in the Irish. They built loads of them. You get them in there. Because they had to work anyway. For the keep. For the keep. So, you know, we get them working somehow. But the Irish, they were saying, we've had enough of you English. So they got to the ports, wherever, jumped on ships. They thought they were sailing to the big New World.
Yeah.
And when they sailed, it wasn't like getting a hovercraft now. It took ages. It took weeks, not weeks, but it took a long time. And if you're on a ship bopping up and down and whatever, and it stays like over a week or two to get it right across the sea, the Southern Irish Sea, right over here. And they were sailing in and they came into Liverpool. And they thought they were in America. They were made up. They got away from the English. Little did they know that they were, like smack bang in the middle of. So I'll have to read you something different now. So when the Irish were coming over, these are Liverpool papers, by the way. Right. And this one is from the Liverpool Mail. I read one the other night, so I won't read that again. From the Liverpool Herald. This is 1848. And it's the Liverpool Mercury, which became the Liverpool Echo, which is still in print today, as you know. And it says, it is not to be forgotten too that much, very much of the Irish misery lies quite beyond the reach of any remedial measure of a government, except by a very indirect and gradual process can change the idiosyncrasies and aptitudes of a nation, convert a slothful, improvident, and reckless race into an industrious, thrifty, and peaceful people. We may not see what the stuff of the finest peasantry in the world are made of by visiting the Irish Quarter in any of the large towns of England or America. There is a taint of inferiority character of the pure Celt, which has to do with his present degradation and Saxon physiognomy. That was about the Irish. Inferiority complex. You can look and say, oh, yeah. But you see the propaganda.
Yes, absolutely.
This is the hate.
Absolute. And the horror of stuff like that, which gets ingrained in certain people, is that we're still living amongst that propaganda. And not just for the Irish, but anyone who comes.
Yeah, but it's mostly the Irish, because like in 1847, a game from a Liverpool newspaper the year before, the Mercury, said that the scum of Ireland come to Liverpool and die in their thousands is true. But whose fault is that? Misgovernment in Ireland, idleness and part of the peasantry, and ignorance and extravagance on part of the gentry. The people that come here are not labourers. They are beggars and paupers. They never were labourers. You never were. So, in other words, he said, they wanted to work. They were no labourers. Lazy people, slothful people. They never were labourers. They never did an honest day's work in their lives. They lived by begging, as the Roman Catholic prelate regrets to say they cannot do now. For the potato crop has failed when they arrive here. Begging is their profession, the workhouse their retreat, the fourpenny loaf per day a certainty, and medical aid, port wine soup, a coffin, and a Christian burial.
Absolute. But in part, what you touched on there as well is one of the biggest reasons to hate the Irish, because they would not, over generations, would not renounce their Catholicism.
No. They wouldn't renounce it in Ireland, they wouldn't renounce it over here. They were very strong. What did they do? Even before the famine, they needed strong labourers to build the railway system.
Yeah.
So they went, we need strong labourers to navigate where we're putting these things. Even the canals.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even the canals, to build canals. Canals were never there, they had to build them.
You have to take the docks out dig the docks out,
everything,
work.
everything. So they said, we need strong men. This is the railway now. So we have to navigate. We get the navigators in. And who were the navigators? The Irish. The big, strong Irish.
Yeah.
So they obviously, when we say the navvies, it shortens for the navigators. They were the Irish.
Yeah.
And it's even it resonates today with the Irish, on the building sites.
Yeah.
And but anyway, so this is what was happening.
Yeah.
This is what was happening. And when George Bernard Shaw, he became one of the greatest writers of all time.
Absolute.
Right? GBS. He turned around and he said, how could there be a famine when the country was full of food? A very famous quote by him. And he was spot on, because not only was all food being exported into England, but also potatoes.
Yeah.
It wasn't all over Ireland. They were exporting potatoes into England. And loads of Irish were shot at the dockside because they were trying to steal something. They were starving.
Yes.
Starving, so they were. These people. These poor, wretched people. And look, officially, I'll give you an example. There was a fellow, I forget his name, I don't know whether it was Owen or someone like that. And in 1836, he went over to America as a 17-year-old. And all his little family, he said, I'm gonna make me fortune, I'll send for you. You can all come over to America. So, this is a kid, this is a 17-year-old lad. And he went to America. He came back in 1851 looking for his family. Every single one of them were dead. Everyone. He had no relatives left. But it wasn't only him, there was lots of them. Families were wiped out. Officially, there was 750,000 official died of famine. Unofficially, 3 million.
Yeah.
3 million. Think about that.
Yeah.
That's genocide.
Yes, absolutely, Frank. Yeah.
So,
wow.
When you talk about like what goes on in the world today, it was going on back then.
It was, and interesting. My particular great grandmother came over here age 16, not because of potato famine, but because she was fleeing the black and tans, which is another way, which is commonplace now. If you can't fight them, you need to divide and rule. So
divide and conquer. Yeah.
Yes, is that which has always been there. Horrific.
That divide and conquer. Divide and conquer came from a Roman writer named Tacitus. That's what the Romans did. Divide and conquer. That's what he said. Going back to the Roman period.
Yeah.
Tacitus.
Get side, and then it's easier to kill the others.
Oh yeah. So anyway, what we'll do, we'll end it there about the Irish.
Yeah.
And we'll carry on with it again at another date.
Yeah.
If you don't mind, I hope people don't mind.
And just we're living through the positive side of the Irish coming to Liverpool. We see it every day.
Well, it sounds all Clegane. I just seen this, Freud has an interesting take on the art. He said that they lacked the strength of character to progress past the Rugby World Cup quarter-final. Go away. But that's going back, isn't it? The strength of the Irish have got one of the most how can I say this? The so if you talk about strength of character,
Yeah.
the Irish have got it.
So patriotic to Ireland, is in all of it. And whether you're actors, musicians, any Irish export, like a Scouse export, you can do a lot of things, but you will never remove Ireland from the hearts of these people.
Just shows you, the likes of Freud, I didn't know he said that, sounds off. Thank you. They lack the strength of character to progress past the Rugby World Cup quarter-final. Wow.
No. Don't agree with Mr. Freud?
I don't think, I totally don't.
Go and analyse your mother.
I'll have to go. The English re-established control of Ireland after the Irish Earls and rebels in the 1530s. The Crown of Ireland's Act 1542 established Henry VIII as king against the wishes of the people. Yeah. Dermot MacMurdo was the traitor who was first responsible for the oppression of Ireland by soliciting Strongbow, Earl of Pembroke, to help him seize power in 1156. But it's really the backbreaking. They broke the back of Ireland in 1566 because when he left 3 years later in 1569. Sir Humphrey Gilbert, he left it in a state. I'll tell you what he left it in a state of. If you look at Libya today, when they took out Gaddafi, that's what you call a failed state. Failed state. Iraq is a failed state. Syria today, failed state. Afghanistan, failed state. It was a failed state. But the Irish have got that resolve to fight everything right up to the 20th century. Right up. And they're still fighting now for the all Ireland, no matter how you look at it. And they will achieve it. They will achieve it. Right, so if our Jason's back, I'll go for a quick break and I'll talk about us lot.
The beautiful Italians.
The Port of Liverpool building was the first to be erected of the Three Graces in 1907, and the eminent architect was Sir Arnold Thornley. Looking at this stunning building, you could be forgiven if you thought that you were in Rome or Florence, Italy. Yet, we are here on Liverpool's famous waterfront and the New World Heritage Site. Here in the reception area, we have the Italian terrazzo with its wonderful mosaic compass. The Port of Liverpool building is mainly used for offices, and you can imagine the thousands of feet crossing over. Yet, very few know of the terrazzo and the compass's history. Italian migrants came over to Liverpool and plied their trade to make enough money for passage to America. That is how the building and others are graced with such fine Italian work as the terrazzo. Do we know the names of any of these talented men who laid the fabulous floor? You won't find them on a roll of honour, but you will find them tucked away in the terrazzo floor itself. Directly above the compass, you will find the central magnificent dome. Behind this unassuming door is a perfect example of Liverpool's architecture, unseen. It's a bit of a climb, as you can imagine, but when we get to the top, it's well worth it, because through this door is another gem which you will see on Liverpool's architecture unseen. So I'm now in the inner dome, and I'm sorry to keep it in the dark, because a matter of 60 years ago, we had a little Wales war, and it's been blacked out ever since. If you're scared of heights, look away now. Luckily enough, through restoration, the dome will be back to its former glory, and that means lighter shades like pastels, cream, where from ground level and even right up here in the heart of the dome, you'll be able to see the wonderful friezes and covings. During the Second World War, and in particular the May Blitz of 1941, the vibrations of the bombs damaged the structure of the central dome. The iron girders that you can see were cemented and bricked in after the war to stabilise the dome itself in case it toppled over. Earlier we had seen the mark left by the terrazzo floor layers, and just like in modern times, our builders also left their mark. This is the pinnacle of the Port of Liverpool building, a part of Liverpool's architecture unseen. This is the cantilever staircase with its stained glass windows of every country throughout the old British Empire. everything in the building has a nautical theme, right down to the lamp standards, as you can see, the dolphins. So the next time you walk through the port of Liverpool, you'll be able to see some of the wonders for yourself of this magnificent building.
What do you think of that?
Yeah, I love that. Absolutely love it. But the same thing you say, for those scared to heights, don't look down. And I'm thinking, oh God, I am petrified of heights. And I've been there many times, but not done that.
Yeah.
No.
When I was doing that, going up them, it was horrible. It was very claustrophobic going up them steps,
Yeah.
into the dome itself.
Yeah.
And when you look down, it was very high, very high. And anyone like yourself who was scared of heights, it would have frightened you.
Yeah.
And if you're claustrophobic, you wouldn't have even gone up them steps. But it's like things like that that brings to my two great uncles. They came over from Italy. They were terrazzo floor layers. Because if you look at St George's Hall, they would have loved the old mosaic.
Yeah.
Loved it. But unfortunately, they never had the expertise of laying mosaic. It was only the Italians who could do it at the time.
Yeah.
But they didn't send for them. So people started to get fed up. They were saying, well, and they used the Minton tiles in the hall and other buildings there, especially, I'll tell you what it was. It was the Sessions House.
Yeah.
William Brown Street, the top, that was the top building. And they got the terrazzo floor layers in from Italy. They said, yeah, coming there. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. What they've done there. And obviously, when they started to build that and opened the stores in 1907, the terrazzo floor layers, again from Italy, they were there, bang, they did the work, they did the mosaic compass. There's not another kind like it.
No.
A mosaic compass. And if you go to my old university, Brownlow Hill, and you see the red clock tower, it's got a big mosaic clock. And a fella named Salvatini, he was doing it. And you had a great architect by the name of George Grayson. And he went up and he was having a look and he went, oh, look at this. And he said to him, could you do us a favour? He said, what's that? He said, can you come down? He said, I've got a building there and I'd like a mosaic on it. And he went, yeah, all right. So we got a foreigner out of the job. He was doing the clock down. And when you go to Castle Street, you see it. You see the mosaic that he made, he did on Grayson's building. And it's fantastic. And no one recognises, no one looks up at it. They just bypass it. They just bypass it. You've seen it, haven't you, what I've shown you?
Yeah.
The Castle Street.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. So, two of my great uncles, and they came over. And when they went back, they went, oh, look at this. Yeah, it's great over there, in England, Liverpool. And it wasn't until after the First World War, which I won't go into, the Allies said to Italy, listen, we really need you to come in. And they said, we've got no money. We've just sewn the boot up of Italy. We've just sewn it up. This was Garibaldi. It wasn't there, Garibaldi was well gone, and Giuseppe Mazzini. And they said, we just sewn the boot up of Italy. We've got no money to going into wars. And anyway, the Allies said, listen, we'll compensate you. right after the war. We'll win this war, there's no problem about that. But we need you to stop the Turks getting over to the Western Front. And we need you to go to the Balkans. So he said, okay, on the promise of being compensated.
Yeah.
They lost 30,000 men in one fell swoop because the Turks were there waiting for them. And there was snow. And I'm talking about the mountains. And they went through and they made a camp at the bottom. But there was also explosives waiting. Bang, gone. Killed 30,000 Italian soldiers. And they did stop the Turks from getting to the, to help the Germans.
But at what cost?
Big cost. And after the war, no compensation. You think about this. After the war, it was an armistice. There was no winners. It's what you call an armistice. So the Allies were, okay, we'll stop the war. We'll help everybody out. We'll help each other to rebuild. But the Americans, they flooded the market with their dollar. And they went right into Germany. And I forget what it was called, their currency then, but let's call it the Deutschmark. The Deutschmark. It was useless. It wasn't worth the money there. The money it was printed on. It was useless. So you had to get dollars. You could even go home with a barrow load of notes from your work, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It was useless. The currency, and that's how they flooded the market. And when the Italians went, well, where's that compensation? When are we getting paid? Even us, we were like that to the Americans. Okay, so, you owe us for the war. With the arms they were bringing over, sending over. That's how they cornered the market. So we owed them for decades for the First World War. And it wasn't until the Blair Blair government could only pay off the Second World War.
Yeah. He signs the final check, didn't he?
Yeah, the final check. Because the Americans won't let you get away with anything if you owe them. This is why you've got a massive military complex that are making. That's why they bribe all congressmen and everybody else to keep wars going.
That's right.
Since 1776, America, you're not going to believe this, hasn't been involved since 1776 and the independence. They haven't been involved from now to today. 6 wars. They've been involved in every war except 6 since 1776. So it shows you, to keep this military complex going.
Yeah, there's no money in peace.
No. But getting back to the Italians, there were people, especially the South that suffered droughts and whatever. And some fella by the name of Benito Mussolini came along at the same time as Adolf Hitler. Now, don't forget the armistice. Now, people might think, oh, you're supporting it. I'm not supporting them, believe you me. Believe you me. Not supporting them. But think about it, at the same time, these 2 fellas came along in different countries and went, are you having this? People were starving. The big H to Liverpool.
Yeah.
when he came to see his half brother, who worked at the Adelphi, and his sister, who lived down the south end of Liverpool, came to see them. And he was amazed when he went on the overhead railway. He was amazed when he was by Lime Street Station and seeing all these handcarts being pulled with all goods on. And when he went to see his sister, she opened her larder. It wasn't a fridge, it was a larder. He said, "You've got more food in that larder than there is in shops in Germany." Because he's seen people starving to death. This is what you don't hear about.
Yeah.
The same as Il Duce, the leader, Benito Mussolini. He said, they gave us nothing. They gave us nothing. So what he did, where all roads lead to Rome, as it was.
Yeah.
He built the railway. He said, right. He said, what I want you to do, this is to the north, the industrial north. He said, I want you to pay for them. And he said to the south, and we want you to pay, to feed the north. And he built the railways. And every single one of them was on time, even today. Fantastic. Every one of them are on time, even today. So these people are great this. But my family, they were like that, can't afford it. And that's why you had a hell of a lot, millions of them. They said, we're not having this. And a member of my family said, okay, well, they promised us. We never gave it. So let's go to their country then. Let's see what they promise us. So you had the great movement of Italians. And they came over. My family were on the way to America. They stopped off at Liverpool. And then half of them, the family got a passage over to America. But there was a six-month waiting list, because there wasn't only Italians here trying to get over to America.
Yeah.
Every country more or less in Europe, Chinese.
Yeah, you could wait months, couldn't you?
Yeah.
For passage.
Yeah. It's called the Great Walk. And the Great Walk, if you couldn't afford your passage, afford your passage from Italy to England, especially Liverpool, to get the boats over to America, excuse me, they walked. They actually walked. Paid the ferry, got to Liverpool. Half of them went over, as I said, got to New York. And then this other half, like my mother's half, was stuck here. And they couldn't go anywhere. So they got work. One of my great uncles has a barrel organ going around, earning money.
Yeah.
And they got work. So they decided to stay. They said, we might as well stay here.
Yeah.
Rather than going over and trying to set up something different over in America. So they got settled here.
Yeah.
The kids were going to school.
So was this the area that we now fondly call literally?
Yeah, I'm going to show you it now. Right?
Yeah.
Now, there's the, sorry. Right. When you look at this here, this is where I grew up.
Yeah.
right? This is where I grew up. Just bear with me on this. Oh, I've gone past. So I grew up around here, right? All around here. Can you see that dot there? No?
I can see the shop, but I can't see your.
Yeah, little arrow. No, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Right, so now St. Anthony's. Now, why am I showing you St. Anthony's is because when the Irish came over, they wanted the nearest Catholic church.
Yeah.
And they wanted it near the river. Because everybody, all migrants, they always seem to go by a river so that it's easier to get in, but it's easier to get out as well.
Yeah.
That's why they, for centuries,
Yeah.
by a
Also,
river.
also work.
Yeah.
As dockers, as dock workers, as labourers.
Yeah. So anyway, this is St. Anthony's.
Yeah.
Now, during the famine, and right after that, the influx of 1847, the Irish into Liverpool, it was shocking because what they had, they were bringing with them louse-borne diseases. And it was shocking.
Yeah.
You had everybody, the likes of priests and nuns, and, they were going in, they were caring. You had the likes of Kitty Wilkinson. And again, at a later date, you had the Agnes Jones who we've mentioned.
Yeah.
Now, they were going into these diseased people. Looking after them. And the priests and the nuns who were dying. Why I'm showing there if you can see, can't you, the crypt of St. Anthony's Church. You can see the crypt there, can't you? Right?
Yeah.
And priests and nuns were actually buried there. And it's shaped as a cross. It's shaped as a cross. As you know, you've been in there, I've been in there.
Yeah.
And it's wonderful the way they've kept it going.
Yeah.
The whole area of it's shaped as a cross because one goes down towards Great Ormond Street, the other one goes towards Sylvester Street, and the other one, goes right across Scotland Road, and that's your cross. That's the cross.
I think
the crypt.
I think it's one of the most special churches in the city. It's a church close to my heart because obviously my family grew up for generations and going there, and and we're both friends of Bishop Tom Williams, who went through there. I just love it. I was actually artist in residence to St. Anthony's during Bishop Tom's time there.
Yeah, when I went in there, I didn't know he was just like a priest. He said, "Would you like to go downstairs?" I went, "Yeah, can we?" Yeah, so I brought my students down there and showed me. Fantastic.
Yeah,
fantastic. And I think everybody becomes a friend of that great man, Bishop Tom. Really do. But you see, it's hard to explain when people, were going out, the likes of nuns and priests, and, they were dying of diseases and being buried down there. Now, St. Anthony's Church, it wasn't always like that. The very first St. Anthony's Church was in Skirvin Street. It was in a cellar of a house because the Catholics were not emancipated and they had to be inconspicuous. So by the time they were emancipated in 1830, bang, they started to build churches, with towers and steeples and whatever. It's
Yeah.
incredible. It's incredible, really,
It is.
what has happened after 1830.
What I heard, which ties in with what you were saying before, is the original St. Anthony's Church, which obviously was not as beautiful, as ornate as that, was set up by a French priest, Father Geraldo,
Yeah,
and it was to house the French prisoners of wars who
yeah,
were Catholics,
yeah.
and they were allowed to come up, some in chains, some not, to go to church, to go to mass.
David, I'm glad you mentioned chains because they were the only people in chains were the French prisoners of war.
Yeah.
They built the Georgian Quarter along with the inhabitants of the workhouses, as I
Yeah.
said. They built Rodney Street, and they are there. Is that your drawing?
Yeah.
Go away.
That's the first time I went down to the crypt, and it hadn't been modernised. There was one light bulb, which you could see there,
Yes,
and you remember it that way as well, really.
yeah, I do.
Very atmospheric, very spiritual,
Yeah,
and Bishop Tom told the most wonderful stories about the operation of a church, basically down to your classes. If, like you and I, our family were humble in origins, we were working class, then we would not be allowed to be buried towards the altar, because the rich folk in the neighborhood felt that those buried towards the altar were straight up to heaven, so they could pay for it. So the money went in the pot, which is kind of, whether it's entirely factual, I don't know, but I kind of like.
yeah, I believe that because it's just like when people who were very mean throughout their lives and didn't give a F about the poor or anybody
Yeah,
on their death, on their deathbed, when they made a will, they gave a portion to the poor. So that was their payment into heaven.
yeah,
Through life, they didn't give a toss about anybody.
no, and
And that was the rich.
in this particular burial place, they supposedly kicked up such a fuss that there were so many Irish being buried at St. Anthony's that they took their custom to SFX.
Yeah, yeah. I've given lots of eulogies to St. Anthony's and up at SFX as well.
Yeah,
St. Francis Xavier's. Lots of them. Look at that. Now that's the old Holy Cross Church.
yeah,
And this is where the Italians are more or less living. That's the original on the left.
yeah.
Holy Cross. That's the original. I wonder if he's got my church. That wasn't my school or church. Yeah, I'll just go back. Do you see you see the church? I'm talking about the bottom picture. This is very, very important.
Yeah,
And even the top. You see the building next to it, right?
yeah,
Not the church itself. And that goes right down Great Cross Hall Street. Now that building is so significant for the likes of myself because I know who the architect was, and I'm made up that it's still there. It's still part of it. Well, not that, but further down, still part of it. And it was an architect by the name of Welby Pugin Welby Pugin was one of the greatest architects the world has ever seen, and he came from down south. And as I said, I've mentioned this before, when the Catholics were emancipated in 1830, he converted to Catholicism because he knew, he said, there's bound to be loads of Catholics wanting churches built. And they sent for him down here, and he came up, to Liverpool, and these people said, will you build us a church? And this is St. Oswald's up in Old Swan. And he went, yeah, all right. He said, but we want it nice, we want it to be seen. He said, oh, you'll be seen, all right. He said, how would you like a steeple, a big steeple? And he went, yeah. So St. Oswald's in Liverpool became the very first Catholic church to have a steeple in the north of England. But he also came out about in Liverpool. I always forget the bloody name of this church, and it's in Park Lane. Park Lane. Where the Scandinavian church is.
Yeah, beautiful.
Well, it's facing there. It's a bit further along, but facing it, and I think it's St. Paul's, St. Peter's and Paul's. I always forget it, unfortunately. But Welby Pugin built that too. And do you know where the Royal Infirmary was? Right, it's gone now, it's demolished, but the new one. Well, right there, facing Low Hill, you've got a church. I forget the name of the church, and it's still there today. And he built that, Welby Pugin. So he did a lot of work around Liverpool, Welby Pugin. But I was absolutely made up that that's still there today, that particular thing. Right, so look at that. I don't know what that is. I'm sorry.
St. Sylvester's.
St. Sully's.
Again, across the road from St. Anthony's, really.
Yeah, that's all. Yeah, it is across the road, Sylvester Street. And I don't live far from there, do I? And you know what? They're apartments now. Mad, isn't it? How churches have become apartments. And this is where I grew up. And if you look there, Johnny Gianelli's Chippy. And in the background there, you've got Jerry Gardens. That's that's where I was born and bred.
Wow. This is a famous location. Sorry, Frank. This is a famous location that you've talked about in the past, isn't it? With some high-ranking celebrity visitors.
Oh, well, Frank Sinatra was actually appearing at the Empire, and he said to one of the stagehands, he said, "Listen," he said, "I'm hungry." He said, "Yeah, there's a chippy." What's a chippy? What's a chippy? He said it's Italian. He's got an Italian name, Johnny Gianelli. And he went, oh, okay. So anyway, he went around, he got fish and chips. Now, Johnny Gianelli made the finest chips on the planet for some reason. Anyway, he went around to Sinatra and gave it to him. So he ate there right through. He was just sent over with the lads, He just sent over the stagehand for fish and chips until he went back. He said, that was great, a great restaurant there. But he never stepped foot inside there, right? Oh. Now, where's the crux? He was appearing in New York, Sinatra, as you do. And who went along to see him was another Anglo-sized Italian, if you know what I mean, Frankie Lane. Now, Frankie, He went, and he said, yeah, come backstage. And he said, listen, he said, we're going down to Vegas. Do you want to come down with us? You know, the Rat Packet. He said, no. He said, I'm going on a European tour. He said, where are you going? So he mentioned places. He mentioned Liverpool. And he went, whoa, he said, you've got to go to a restaurant. The finest Italian restaurant, he said.
Wow.
In Liverpool. So anyway, okay, and he must have wrote it down. And when he was appearing at the Empire, he said to someone of them, hey, listen, he said, there's a restaurant, he said, called Gianelli's. And he went, Johnny Gianelli's? Yeah. He said, I want you to show me where this place is. He said, I really need something to eat. And this is at lunchtime. So he walks along. He said, yeah, there it is, there. And he looked. You can imagine this fella in a very light blue suit, white shirt, silk shirt, beautiful tan. Right. The suit must have cost off. And anyway, he goes along there. I know it's hard to believe, but he you know, and he sees all these little mad kids, you know, all queuing up to go in. So he's trying to get in, and he shouts over, "Excuse me," he said, "I've been advised to come to your restaurant." He said, by Mr. Sinatra, Frank Sinatra, highly recommended it. He said, never mind who recommended it. He said, you'll have to wait for the kids to get served. They've got to go back to school. And there was a little, in there on the left, there was like a little cubbyhole with a little table and a little bench. Frankie Lane sat there. I don't know whether he enjoyed his meal, his fish and chips or whatever he got. I just don't know, but that's one of the greatest stories. Johnny saying, yeah, you'll have to get in the queue and wait for these kids. These have got to go back to school. It's just incredible, isn't it? It's incredible.
How, you know, how...
And as I said about Capaldi as well, you know, there's Capaldi, the gelati people, you know, the ice cream.
Yeah.
It's just, see, I've always said about when the Italians came over, the Irish gave us, they gave us sea shanties. They gave us hard work. The Italians, they came over. They lived side by side. Just let me show you this. Bear with me. Hang on. Bear with me. Now, why I showed them two? Why I showed those two? Hang on.
Of Irish descent?
Yeah, well, their families came over on the way to America. 2 presidents of the United States. 2 presidents.
Wow.
That's my Uncle Dominic.
Wow. Beautiful.
That's my Uncle Dom. He's the only boxer. He was known as the Liverpool Wop when he went to Madison Square Garden. And he had 7 fights. He's the only, like Englishman, well, like Italian really, but he's the only Englishman to go to the Madison Square Garden, have 7 fights, won 6 and drew 1. The only one. And they called him the Liverpool Wop. The Liverpool Wop. The Americans loved him. And he actually beat the world champion, because the world champion, it wasn't for the championship fight, but the world champion, you know, he's this Wop fella, you know, taking them all out. I'll get it. And he beat him. He beat him. He beat the champion of America.
Wow.
Anyway, that was me great uncle Domenico Volanti. What was his name? And he just made up with that, though. Made up that. So Little Italy, he grew up in Little Italy. Well, he went to live in Little Italy when he came over. And I'm going to show you this. I'm going to show you this. Where are we? There we are. Right. Now here, let me show you. Show you where Little Italy is. Now where those lines are, around here, right around here, here. Now, this is where I grew up. There. This is where I grew up. And Little Italy was right here. Right down here. Obviously, with this one here, it was knocked down, Little Italy, but it was right through here. Right through here. Right through. Now, St. Joseph's Parish, where I went, was here. There. Yeah. That's where I went. Holy Cross that I showed you, video, was here. And why it was called Holy Cross? Why it was called Holy Cross was because of St. Patrick on his way to Ireland came to Liverpool. He had to get to Liverpool to get to Ireland. And he had a staff. And obviously he stayed right on the spot, waiting for the ship to take him to Ireland.
Yeah.
And that's why they named it Holy Cross, because of St. Patrick.
Wow.
Right on the spot he stayed.
I never knew.
So he built Holy Cross, an Holy Cross school. And I went to St. Joseph's and Bishop Goss.
Wow.
Okay, so that's where I grew up. Right there. Right there. It's incredible. And that's where... But that was Little Italy anyway, you know, right down there.
Yeah.
Right down, right through there. Right through. And that was Little Italy, known as Little Italy. And someone, can't mention his name, he's died. I didn't even know he was dead. There was a consul, a lady it was, I forget her name, and she put a plaque on, you know, like the new Jerry Gardens, you know, because Jerry Gardens was pulled down, don't know why, it was beautiful Art Deco. But anyway, that's by the by. And she put this plaque up, and it said, you know, about Little Italy on this spot here. And I went along to see it. You know, she was talking, a lovely lady. There was a little crowd of us, but I was going. I had to give a talk at St. George's Hall, and I got off, and the plaque was lovely. It was made up with it. Oh, that's great. Do you know where the Ponsac was? Or it is? The pub? The Ponsac? No. And it was right in there. But anyway, it was a pub for us. It's not a pub anymore. I don't know what it is. So anyway, I got off to St. George's Hall. And I brought someone down to see the plaque. You know, 2 or 3 weeks later. I said, the plaque's there. I said, you've got to come and see it. So anyway, I jumped in the car, went down. And I was looking for the plaque. Someone had nicked it. I know I got told who it was, but I'm not. I'm not.
Right. Did you get it
No,
back?
no, never got it back. Okay. An Italian family, as an ancestor, a descendant of Italians, and his name is Italian anyway. He's very proud, like ourselves. But we wouldn't have any mosaic things, in the buildings now, inside buildings. Even pubs, pubs when you go in, people hardly recognise them. When you go in, you've got the floor and you go in and you've got a mosaic floor.
Yeah.
They're fantastic. And that's what they did. They did loads of work because the terrazzo floor layers. Because, they were saying, well, why can't we go over to the big, America? Why can't we go there? The lands of freedom. The lands of freedom who wouldn't give us the money that they promised. But they take. So that's why the Italians went, look, the Irish, they went. And this is why you're in America, you've still got Little Italy, you've still got the Irish quarter.
Yeah. Yeah.
The Irish, I was very surprised what Freud said there.
Yeah.
Very surprised.
Yeah, it's not a quote. It sounds like someone who's not a fan of the Irish, really. It's yeah. Literally in New York is not as big as you describe or Liverpool.
No. I'll tell you one thing, a cousin of mine went over and he went over to see one of our relations in New York, and he was greeted off. He went to Kennedy Airport, got the plane. He was picked up, and he said, "Come on," he said, "We're going to have a few beers." And he went to Little Italy. He went to this little bar, restaurant, whatever it was, and they go in. Everybody's glad to see him. You're from Liverpool, the Beatles, and whatever. And when the time that they went to the lads, their dad, Luigi, he said, "Come on, we're going now. We're going to see me pop." So they went through, drove over, and he gets out the car. Luigi, this uncle of ours, he was greeting them. This old man, he was an old man. And he's at the top of the small steps, leading up to the house. So he's going, and he went, "Yeah," and he said, "Oh, this is great. Oh, good." So honestly, as soon as he steps inside the door, he started speaking Italian. And he went, I don't understand. I don't understand what he's saying. And he brought him outside. And he said, "You don't speak the mother language?" He said, "No." He said, "You don't speak the mother. What are they doing over there?" You can imagine with this very strong New York accent, what are they doing over there in England? My family. So he came over and he said, "I can't go back until I speak Italian." Genuine, that. Genuine. Very proud, very proud.
Yeah.
So, as I said, this was all Little Italy. Beautiful, just all of that. As I said, this is where I grew up, just around here.
Yeah.
This was all Little Italy. All Little Italy. And it was known as, why it was known as Little Italy, that's where all the Italians got the houses, and that's where they went to live, and it was just all Italians. Now, as I said about the sea shanties with the Irish, what these people brought, what the Italians brought was music.
Yeah.
Classical
music. Absolutely.
cuisine,
Yeah.
colour.
Yeah.
So these two entities, the Irish and the Italians, locked together.
Yeah.
That's why you've got a lot of Italians marrying, into the Irish,
Yeah.
because they live next door to one another,
Yeah.
if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
They more or less have the same culture, especially religion culture, the culture of religion. So,
Absolutely. Yeah.
sorry, go on.
And the same work ethics as well. Just workers,
Yeah,
just leaving an absolutely beautiful legacy that we still walk around now.
yeah, of course. But on the next segment, it won't be. I'm going to leave it a couple of weeks about the Irish and the Italians, and then we'll be going on what they actually brought into Liverpool. I just mentioned like the sea shanties by the Irish. I just mentioned about the cuisine and whatever with the Italians. But what I will go on about is some of the people, some of the Italians, some of the Irish that came through Liverpool on the way to America. They stayed in. I'll give you one example. One example. So in the next segment that we do the Irish and the Italians, the people that came through were incredible. There was good, there was the good, there was the bad, and there was the ugly. And one of them, this is one example I'm giving. One example. And this fella came up with his family. And believe it or not, he was a Mormon, one of the Mormons.
Yeah.
And he came to Liverpool, stayed here 6 months. Stayed here 6 months, went to America, right? And he became infamous. Infamous. And do you know what his name was? Or I forget his real name, but you will know him by Butch Cassidy. You know Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid?
Yeah. Yeah.
He's Butch Cassidy.
The, the real guy.
The real Butch Cassidy, yeah.
Wow. Say.
Stayed here in Liverpool with his family.
Wow.
Incredible, isn't it?
It is incredible.
Well, if you find that incredible, wait till you hear what other people who came through. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Who came through to Liverpool, went to America. A couple of them went to. I used to teach at this university, but before it became a university, you mentioned it, SFX before, St. Francis Xavier's.
Yeah.
And these two little kids, different, they were not together, right? Went to those schools, went to that school, and that's where they learned English. So I'll be talking about them. I'll be talking about lots of other people as well who went through, as I said, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Okay, and let me go through some comments. Let's just take this down a minute. Let's go through some comments, what you've all been saying. Simon says, did you know the Irish did not traditionally eat corned beef? It became a popular dish amongst the Irish immigrants in America due to its affordability and the availability of ingredients, salt and beef. Well, it came from Argentina. It came from Argentina. Now, don't forget, you mentioned about, see, it has to be tinned. And who invented the tin was a very well-known man.
Yeah.
And he wanted to feed his soldiers. He hated them foraging. So he said, I need something to preserve food for my soldiers, for my brave soldiers. And that was Napoleon. Napoleon Bonaparte. What a man. And Simon says, Annie Moore, the first immigrant to be processed at Ellis Island in New York Harbor. She arrived on January the 1st, 1892, a 17-year-old girl from County Cork. Well, with you saying that, and, there was all these migrants who were just piling in. And the customs, they were harassed. And only one ship could take days to process with these migrants coming in. So they sent to Liverpool, they said, telegraph Liverpool, they said, listen, can you do something about us? About these migrants coming in? Not letting so many on it. They said, we can't do that. They said, well, and they explained, like the Americans explained to the Liverpool lads, migration people, the immigration people. So they said, yeah, okay. They said, what we'll do, we'll process them here. If they haven't got papers or passports, we'll put a label on them. And it'll be WOP without passports or papers. Is that okay? Will you, could you do that, sort that out? Like they said, that's brilliant, that great idea. So here in Liverpool, they were putting on the labels of WOP. So by the time they got to America, they seen these people with the labels on, and they were going, you get over there, you lot, well, you've got your papers, yeah, got your passports, yeah, well, you come right through. And it was all done like that so quickly. And as I mentioned before, my great uncle, the boxer, that's how he was earning his living. And he became the Liverpool Wop. So we'll be talking more about characters. And Sandor said, what are we talking about? That's what we're talking about. George shot. I can't read that. I know that says Frank. Is fear. Thank you, Frank. You're a gentleman, says George said. Thank you. That's nice, isn't it?
Yes.
Isn't that lovely?
Yeah.
Isn't that lovely?
Yeah.
Simon, I never knew tomatoes originated from the Andes in Peru. It's great, Simon. Being the basis of Italian food, I thought it was a European food and introduced into Europe by Spanish explorers. Yes, you spot. It's like tobacco, wasn't it? Like tobacco when the other fella brought it over. The half brother of who I mentioned before.
Sir Walter.
Yes, Sir Walter Raleigh, yeah. Sir Walter Raleigh. So everything was introduced. Everything. You know, people think that horses, originated in America because you get so many films with fellas riding horses and cowboys. And wrong. They were introduced by the Europeans, the horses. Johann. Frank, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't it true that Gandhi got the idea of fasting as a sign of protest? Mayor of Terence McCracken. You're right. You're so right. During the War of Independence of 60. Yeah. That's a cracker, that. You stole me thunder there, by the way. That was the next. Oh, well done, yeah, honestly, Johan. And George says, Johan, it may well be true that Max really got his inspiration from Gandhi as his first fast for a while in South Africa in 1930, years before the Irishman. Incredible. Christopher. My shoes, Frank. What do you mean? Oh, do you mean going up the steps? I've still got them, believe it or not. Honestly, I've still got those shoes. And Johan, I stand corrected, thank you. No, don't be corrected. That's brilliant. Barry, another tremendous video. Thank you, Barry. Thank you so much. Jet, superb, Frank. Had my first interview there. Never got the job, though. I'll tell you one thing. I don't really want to talk about sectarianism. But Tate Lyles, now you know where Tate Lyles was, don't you?
Yeah.
And Ted Sheridan will know where Tate Lyles is, because his mum comes from there. She went to St. Bridget's, Bevington Bush. Incredible. Anyway, Tate Lyles, did you know? Now, where Tate Lyles was predominantly Catholic, right?
Yeah.
And he wouldn't bring a Catholic in. He wouldn't give a Catholic a job. Did you know that?
No, didn't know that, no.
And the only people who gave Catholics a job was Marks and Spencer's.
Wow, get away.
It's incredible, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's the way it was. It's the way it was. Johan to Simon. There's a quote for you. Oh, yeah, look. Johan's coming out with quotes today. To the quote man himself, Simon. I am confident that my death will do more to smash the British Empire than my release, Terence McSween. George said, Italian craftsmanship was world famous. We here in Belfast are lucky to still have some of their work. Belfast City Hall, marble work and flooring, churches also, even the beautiful Crown Bar interiors. There you go.
Brilliant.
The Italians. The Italians. The tragedy of the SS Andorra, says Simon. On the 2nd of July, I never knew the ship was built at Camaleard, and 477 Italian internees were killed by a German U-boat when sailing from Liverpool to St. John's in Canada. Rest in peace, yes. Yes. Wars are horrible. Yes. The spirit of LFC fans. Hi, Frank, Anthony, and chat. How are you? Like, comment, share, subscribe. You'll never walk alone, says the spirit of LFC fans. Thank you for that. Really appreciate it. And Simon to you, the question is not to manage society as it is, but to transform it into a democratic and socialist direction. Giorgio Amendola, one of my heroes, Italian partisan from World War II. I'll be talking about the partisans because my family, some of my family was partisans in the Second World War, totally against fascism.
Yeah.
Fighting alongside other partisans. AR, Hi, Frank and Anthony. AR. Hello,
Yeah.
AR. Never seen AR before, have you?
Yeah. No.
Oh. Bella Italia. Franco, my father was Italian and lived in Scotty Road for many years. He was a man of all trades. Have you met Santoro? Yeah, of course. Of course. We're the Valances. Then we had the Sant'Angelis, or Sant'Angeli. We had the Ventris. We had the Muscatellis. There's loads of us. The Mielos. There's loads of us. Piscinos. Pericinis. Go on and on and on. They're all wops. They're all wops, Bella, I tell you. Simon, St. Anthony's owed much to the efforts of a French priest, the Reverend Jean-Baptiste Antoine Girardot. That's who you mentioned before.
Yeah.
Was an emigre from the French Revolution, 1789. I'll be doing that in a future thing about the French Revolution, Simon, if you're interested. I'll be speaking about Danton, and also Robespierre. But I'll be bringing Napoleon into it. And this is where, people get things wrong about Napoleon Bonaparte. Simon. Franco. The Chiappi family also started handcarts and became well known for it. I used to go to the shop. I used to go, it was a chippy. I used to go during my lunch hour because, when I was a kid, school. Because Johnny Gianelli's chock-a-block queue. And I used to run down there to Scotty Road to, they used to call it Chiap. Chiaps, Jerry Chiappi. Geraldo Chiappi. And I used to go in. You're not going to believe this. This is absolutely true, to the contrary of what you believe in. I'm not just saying you, Sarah, other people. Jerry Chiappi, what he did, he used to give the gelato on a little saucer. Well, people used to eat it, you see. Beautiful. They were on little porcelain, like a little saucer. No, you're the kids, you're a little man kid, so you eat it, And he used to smash. Thought we were all Greek. I used to smash the little porcelain thing. And what he did, he went up to St. Joseph's, my parish, sees the priest and says, hey, Father, the communion, it just melts in your mouth. Can you tell me who makes them? Because what I want is wafers. Because that's what a communion is. It's a wafer, melts on your mouth. Or in your mouth. And he went to see this fellow. He said, can you burn us a little, make it a bit harder? He said, yeah. And he made them wafers and little cups. Instead of using the porcelain, the little saucers. Jerry Chiappi.
Today, still eating them.
Yeah, today, still eating it. What comment? Brilliant comments, by the way, boys. Christopher. Frank, is there a picture of your great uncle in the White Star pub? I don't know. I really don't know. I used to go in the White Star. I just don't know. I really don't. When Alf died, I never bothered going in again. Alfie Buxton. Only mentioned it to my daughter today. Alfie. I just don't know, to be honest, Christopher. George. Frank, the Freud quote was fake news from someone trying to. Freud was a long dead before there was ever a look. Yeah, do you know what I was thinking of that? like going back. Well, we get fake news all the time, to be honest, George, as you know. Fake news.
Thanks, George.
George, you know, if you go, there's a fellow by the name of, and for the rest of you, if you fancy looking it up, there's a fellow by the name of Padre Cronin. If you look him up, you'll see an interview. He got hold of me once and he said, would you be able to give an interview about the Irish? I've heard you about the Irish. I said, yeah, sure. I was just recovering from, my operation I had that time. And I did it was smashing. It was just pure Irish. And he's a big Liverpool fan. So we started off with only a little bit football, then went into the Irish. But I'll be giving more about the Irish when we get back together. I have to do some more history, ordinary history next week, so it'll be the week after. Is that all right with you, Anthony?
That's brilliant with me, Frank. Thank you.
And Brendan Behan had a big impact at the end. Came over here when he was arrested for trying to blow up the shipyards in Berg. Yeah, he was living here. And when they got him, he had a gun on him. Brendan Behan, the Boston boy. Irish Pac Hung. Was he a butcher or just a butch? Butch Cassidy, that is. Great. And in future ones as well, Pac, I'll be doing the Chinese.
Definitely.
The very first community in Liverpool.
Definitely.
The very first. And I'm talking about it.
Maybe involve the French who stayed.
Oh, yeah. Oh, well, Kitty Wilkinson, as you know, she married a French prisoner of war.
Yeah.
A fella named by the name of Jean Beaumont. Did you like the way I said that there? Anthony? Jean Beaumont. Good job your lady's not sitting there, she'd melt with me. Jean Beaumont. Don't tell her that. She'd give me a slap. Gary says, I hate the fact they knocked down all the old stuff. Jerry Gardens was absolutely beautiful. It really was. It was Art Deco. And always they had to do, he knocked it down, nevertheless. And Bella says, Franco, my father took care of Shire horses that used to pull. Go away. Go away.
Wow.
So he was a cartier? He must have been a cartier.
Such a part of life, them. The Shire horses. Carter's horses.
I had made up, Jed, tuned in. I was talking to him. I made up, he said, how do we get onto you there? And I said, don't forget and subscribe, Jed. Get the algorithm up there. Simon says, from my friend Dave Allen about the Irish, I suppose Ireland is the best place in the world for directions. People will say to you, I wouldn't start it from here if I were you. Do you know what? This is a true story, this. Oh, what was his name? Do you know the Irish fella, the flutist? What was his name?
Oh, James.
James Galway. Was it James Galway?
Yeah.
And it's James, isn't it? Was his name Galway, yeah?
Yeah. He was
You're
brilliant.
not going to believe it. He was in an interview, hadn't he? This is genuine. And I'm sitting there, listening to. He just plays, what I was taking. Why do I keep doing this? He plays his flute. And then he came back and he sat down. He was being interviewed and he said about islands and whatever. And he said, you wouldn't believe us Irish, he said. But anyway, I'm not doing the Irish accent. He said, and I ran short of money. He ran short of money. And he said, it was 4:10. He said, the banks were shut, he said, because I got up there and I went, I wonder if they... And there was a knock. He's outside the big double doors, right? The bank in Dublin. And then he stands there and he's looking at it. He must have been so and he knocked up. Someone was knocking on the window from the inside. And he looked over and he pulled the peg up. And she said, what you be wanting? And he said, I've got no money. I'm skint. He said, I've got. And she went, hang on a minute. And got, the Irish pounds then. And she went, yeah, just call it straight. Come back tomorrow when we sort it out. She handed him this money. He said I was left standing with the money like that, just looking around, the window closed, and isn't that mad, that, isn't it?
Oh.
Come back tomorrow and sort it out. And James Galway, it was so funny. I was hysterical. It was the way he was saying it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Johan, is AR the Anfield Roar spying on? Yeah, that's it. See, we've got our lads, our comments. They're unbelievable. They work everything out. AR the Anfield Roar. Yeah, told you. The Anfield vlogs. He's at MI6, him. Definitely. Oh, the Redbird. Yeah, I mean, the Anfield Road, the brother got in touch with us and said, don't be worrying about him. He's okay. He'll be back at the end of the month or whatever.
Yeah.
So we're made up.
Yeah.
As long as everybody tells us that they're all right. Really. Redbird. Don't forget to hit the like and sub if you're new. Another great show from the young chaps. I'm sure. Have you been giving him scotch, the Redbird, from the young chaps? Oh. And Simon, Franco, I'm loving this show. Learning so much. Thank you. Loving the little Italy stories and memories. Fantastic. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you so much. And lovely Toscana. My great uncles on my dad's side emigrated to Argentina to get away from having to fight. And my great granddad's worked for the King of Italy. He was in charge of the horses when they had the... Go away. What a story that is.
Wow.
Hey.
What a history. Yeah.
Are you talking about Umberto? King Umberto. Isn't that fantastic? Wow. And even Bella Italia go, wow, Toscana, that is so interesting. You must be very proud of them.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's unbelievable. That. Brilliant. Simon says, I've found a great way to cut down on my electricity bill. I only plug the electric clock in when I want to know the time, says Jimmy Cricket. Do you remember him when he came home with his wellies? And I went left and right. And he had them on their own legs, their own feet. And so, all checks payable to Simon. You'll never walk alone. They are, see. Well, anyway, I'm going to finish. I think we've got to applaud these chatters, to be honest. I think they've been brilliant. Fantastic comments tonight.
Wonderful.
It's incredible, isn't it? Absolutely amazing.
And great
Really
work by
amazing.
our Jason to put everything together.
Wow, without a shadow. You've got, I don't know what to talk about Monday, you know. I don't know whether to carry on like this, and I might bring the Chinese into it.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see about whatever we do, because I want to do the Irish and the Italians, especially the characters. I want to spend more time on them. But I'll be back tomorrow night. Another bloody hard-hitting show. Not like this has been so gentle and nice, but you've got to come on tomorrow night and talk about Kingstar.
Yeah.
And there they knuckle.
Yeah. Yeah.
Simon, ciao Franco, Anthony, and the chat. Wonderful as ever. Thank you, Simon.
Thank you, Simon.
And he says, Franco, more of these type of shows. Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you. Johan. Thank you, Frank, Anthony, and Legends. Have a great night, everyone. See you all tomorrow.
Cheers, Johan. Thank you. Good night.
I'm fed up with the weather.
Weather's psychotic.
Oh, blimey. I'm putting the lights on. What time did I put the lights on? I've been putting the lights on. 6:30, sometime 6 o'clock. Was that last night? Or I don't know. I put the lights at 6 o'clock. 6 o'clock. It was dark. You see these? Oh, Jet. Great show. Thanks, gents. Have any of your previous shows covered the Blitz and evacuation? No, it's been a mishmash. I remember giving a talk in, believe it or not, Church Street, and it was the 70th anniversary of the May Blitz. And they put the podium in the middle of Church Street. A good job it was nice weather. And anyway, I'm giving a talk, like there was all veterans of the Second World War sitting there. There was entertainers sitting there, MPs sitting there, and even a few footballers. And who always says, the bombs are chippy. You said that.
Yeah. Stan Baldwin.
Yep. And he was there, right? And he's sitting in the, And anyway, who he was sitting next to was John Conte, right? And I was called, and there's Frank, So anyway, Frank got up and he went, Okay, now I'm sorry if your mum's listening. Yes, it's not my fault. It's Stan Boardman's. Okay, now in conversation. Oh my, what's up? He went, have you got a candle? And I said, what do you mean, candle? He said, because we're going to be here all fucking night. Conversation. It's only 2 o'clock in the afternoon. He said, you don't know fucking Frank. He said, you don't know fucking Frank. Mrs. Sheridan, if you listen in, sorry. But that's true, that. You don't know fucking Frank. I went for the baby bit in my head afterwards, me and Stan.
Yeah.
Pauline's there, Pauline's annuals. And,
Yeah.
Paul Duval, fella at the time. Night, Frank and Anthony and everyone up the history that says Christopher, thank you so much, mate.
Good night, Christopher. Thank you.
And Christopher always says, and so does the Redbird, hit the like and subscribe.
Yeah.
I bet you they're the only two that haven't subscribed. You just tell everyone else. And George says, loved every minute of the show, lads. Thank you so much. Good night. Good night. Thank you.
Thank you, George.
So and our lovely Tusca. Yes, Umberto. Umberto, the proud of my Italian ancestry. Had my DNA done, only got Italian. Grazie mille for tonight, Franco. Anthony and Chatters. But all the going on in the world is a breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
Thank you, Toscan. I'm going to leave that up. That's a lovely quote. Go back to reality tomorrow. And you don't know what. We're just nice people, aren't we, Anthony? All of the chat there, and they all know what's going on in the world.
Yeah. We
can reminisce about our families. This is why we do this, to reminisce.
Absolutely, Frank. And the very reason that you brought this subject up, and the very reason that Toscani said then, be proud of our roots. The Italian, Irish, Scottish, Welsh, all living in Liverpool, Chinese, Japanese.
Yeah. The Japanese, do you know where they were? Yeah. Do you know where they were? They got off afterwards. Do you know the Bull Ring?
Yes.
The Bull Ring, that's where they were.
Wow.
What bloody street was it? Well, anyway, it's the side of the street of the Bull Ring.
I only knew that going back a couple of weeks when we were doing a thing about St. George's Hall and what was there before it. And then you had the map, we had the map up, and you said, and over there was where the Japanese.
Yeah.
Wow, never heard it.
Yeah, Japanese. Armenians.
Yeah, because of the whaling. Yeah.
Armenians. I don't think there's any Armenian descendants on here. It's surprising. You know what I mean? Absolutely surprising. He came into Liverpool. Oh, look, it's packed. Great show, Frank and Anthony and Jason. What's your YouTube channel called, Frank? I'm on Facebook. Have I got I don't know whether I've got a YouTube. I don't know. It's just YouTube. Google me. Sorry.
Yeah. I think it's under Frank Carlyle.
That's all. Just Google it. on
I'll,
YouTube.
yeah, we'll have to try and find. I'll get a screenshot of it, and
Yeah.
we'll put it up here. But yeah,
Well, Jed Sheridan's mum and his sisters, he said, we watch your, he messaged me.
yeah,
And he said, we watch your DVDs. He said, I hope you don't mind messages. I said, no, not at all. And
fantastic.
anyway, I said, look, this is on X. I said, I hardly use X. So I sent him my number and he sent me his. And I tried to just add it. But anyway, the phone rang and he answered, this is 11:30 last night. And I went, oh, I said, I'm sorry, And he said, sorry. He said, do you want to speak to me, ma'am? I said, okay. Straight to yours, yeah. Hiya, Frank.
Fantastic.
Lovely, just
Happy
lovely.
accident.
Incredible. Incredible. And Jed says, my mum's next door neighbour, John, go away. Go
Wow.
away.
The Contis live at the back of our family home in Kirby for a
I'll
while.
get back to that. Yeah, look, as Christopher says to Jed, type in Frank, I'm sorry, to Pack.
Yeah.
Just type in Frank Carlyle in the search on YouTube. And you'll come up with Brad Pitt. I phoned up about a holiday, And the girl said she was, you're not going to believe, she was Portuguese.
Okay.
I said, what's your name? She said, Andrea. I said, oh, Bocelli. And she went, no, it's spelled different from Andrea Bocelli. And I went, oh, okay. And she said, what's your name? I said, Brad. And she went, Brad. And I went, Pitt. And then, Pitt. How do you spell Pitt? I said, P-I-T-T. And she went, oh, Brad Pitt. She said, that he's an actor. He's a Hollywood actor, a big star. I said, I am him. I said, I'm doing a film here. I said, I'm getting into character with a Liverpool accent. And she said, do you really want to go on a cruise, Brad? I said, I'm only joking. I said, I'm not Brad Pitt.
You know what? You could be Brad Pitt, but Brad Pitt could not be Frank Carlyle.
Alan Blee's sake. That's how someone asked him, Hey Frank, that it could have been about anything. And he went, you better ask Frank, he said. Be asking me. Oh, fantastic, isn't it? It's have a night of fun, to be honest, with all these mad things. Ray Thompson. I remember Stan's vivid memories of the bombing in Everton. I grew up in Iamsco, just off Cornwall Street in 1950. And yes, it was a pure education to send me forth into the world and recently visit 7 locations in Italy and soak up true architecture.
Wow.
Excellent. Excellent. That's great, that, Ray. Ray lives in Portugal. I'm sure it's, is it Ray? I forget now. And Jed, you made it nice. Thanks, Jed. We'll be doing more stuff like this, to bring us so many memories for your lovely mum. Honestly. She moved out when I was about 5. You have 986 subscribers on YouTube, says Pat. You will be making money soon with 1,000 subs. To be honest, Frank, I'm not worried about money, mate. But the point is, I should have well over. I'm not being funny. I saw many who need 14 subscribers to make the 1K. 1K. Be good though if I got them though, wouldn't it? But Anthony, 1,000 subs. Yes, says after John won the title. Next, that's so she lived next door to her, mate. Wow. Doesn't live here now, does he? Good night, Franco. Anthony, fantastic. Once again, have a wonderful sleep. Wake up fresh for tomorrow.
Good night, Bella. Thank you.
Yeah. I haven't got to go anywhere tomorrow. Got to go, Jen, says Barry Aldridge. And ladies, have a good, brilliant again, Frank and Anthony. Take care. No, you take care. You take care. Whereabouts is your family from Italy? Says Toscana to Bella. South of Italy. I think we all come from the south of Italy. So, not the industrial north. We had to feed the North Italians. That's what El Duce said. You feed them and they'll pay you. Too much drought. Yes, Frank, says Ray. Yes, Frankie. Brad Pitt, Portugal. That's genuine what I said, Ray, honestly. I haven't seen you for a while, have I? That's why I was a bit, dodgy with where you came from, Ray. But brilliant to see you again, really. Really. Oh, yeah, look. It's the posh ones coming out now. Bella says, my mum was from Provincia Avellino and my dad from Tuscany. Tuscany. Only Daniel Day-Lewis could come close to portraying Frank on the silver screen, Mr. Brown. Oh, yeah, says you one. Daniel Day-Lewis. Come on, guys, hit the likes and subscribe button, or I will crack some more jokes. Say, Simon. They says, what a country, Italy. I just ordered Silvia Berlusconi's bio my way. Do you know what? I actually seen, I went to see the Pantheon. And I seen this big podium, I was like, I wonder what that's about. So anyway, I always, every time I go to Rome, I always go into the Pantheon. It's my favourite building in all the world. And I goes in and have a look around as usual and come out. And on the podium is Berlusconi. And he was doing it was a political rally. He was campaigning,
Yeah.
Berlusconi. Silvio Berlusconi. Couldn't believe it. And when I got home, telling, a few friends, said, I was listening to Berlusconi. He said, who's he? So I said, oh, some fella, never mind. Waste of time, you know.
Used to be with
Great,
the beat.
got great mates. Coronation Street will do me. But I mentioned some, but I tell you what I mentioned. I mentioned Jaws. You know when it first came out.
Yeah.
I said, oh, I'm reading the cracker. I said, you want to read it? I'll lend you it. What is it? I said, Jaws, about a shark. Oh, fuck off. We'd rather watch Coronation Street. We'd rather watch Collie and Emmerdale. No, you're okay. You can say that really about me mates. George says, my mate's uncle Ray Echo trained John Conte back in the day. Ray was a great Liverpool boxer, too, from L8, Liverpool 8, Ray Echo.
Yeah.
Okay, now. That's great. My granddad was from Tuscany. Wow. I was talking to some Italian the other day, yesterday. No, the day before anyway. And he was from just outside Florence.
Oh.
And they moved to Milan. I said, what are you doing here? Grey skies, wind, rain, fucking raining.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was at a car showroom, to be honest. I'm Francine. I'm going now, says Simon. See you tomorrow. Any hints on the topics being discussed? I'm not giving you hints. Just tune in and you know it's current affairs. So what's the current affairs today in the world? It's
My
not like
change.
going on. Sorry, go on, Dan.
My change in the morning.
That's what I mean. You never know. Tuscany, my favourite place on earth. I speak Italian with a Tuscana. Toscana, honestly, when people are learning Italian of Italian teachers, they tell you that you've got to speak, you've got to learn the language with a Tuscan accent. That's what they tell you. Also, my father lived in Italy, Sicily, Sicilia. Oh. Berlusconi once said about Putin. Putin, for my birthday, sent me 20 bottles of vodka and a very sweet letter. I replied with the bottles of Lambrusco and an equally sweet letter. But we won't be talking about Silvio tomorrow, but we will be talking about Mr. Putin, though. I'll get off then. See you tomorrow. And I'm leaving with that now. Anthony, thank you so much.
Frank, thank you so much. Thank you, guys. Thank you, chat. Been great. Loved
Got
it.
to thank Jason. Got to thank without Jason.
No.
And also, we've got to thank our wonderful sponsors, Got Painting Services, for sponsoring the Frank Carlyle show.
Yeah.
As I said, I'll see you all tomorrow. I'll put it right up, Got Painting Services. And I just don't want you to struggle. Please don't struggle. The sponsors of our Frank Carlyle show. And on that wonderful note, but we must thank and yes, my mum, Francis. Yeah, I remember the name, Francis. As tunes in tonight, she's with my sister Donna and Anne. They have loved it. Thanks again. Speak soon. Jed, your lovely sisters, Donna and Anne, and especially your mum, Francis. Thank you for tuning in tonight. And as the Italians say, mille grazie tutti. Ci vediamo. A domani, sera. Grazie mille. Grazie mille. And I'll see you, well, some of you tomorrow. I'll see some of you tomorrow. But it's our didn't show tomorrow. It's about what's going on in the world. Okay? Don't let your mum listen to me because I swear, you know. Yet. And don't let your sisters either. They be like that. Oh. They make you swear, mate. They make you swear. Thanks a lot, Anthony. I love you. See you soon, eh?
You too, man.